The elevator doors close with a soft hiss, trapping them both inside. Elena Rodriguez presses herself against the back wall, portfolio clutched to her chest, watching the floor numbers climb. 61. 62. The man beside her doesn't move, doesn't acknowledge her presence at all. Nathaniel Harrington stands perfectly still in his deep navy suit, eyes fixed on his phone screen, jaw set in a way that suggests he's carved from something harder than flesh. The elevator lurches. Once. Twice. The lights flicker and die, plunging them into emergency lighting that turns everything the color of old bruises. Elena's breath catches in her throat. The space suddenly feels smaller, the air thinner. Nathaniel doesn't flinch. He presses the emergency button with one finger, precise and mechanical, then returns to his phone as if being trapped 60 floors above the city is nothing more than a scheduling inconvenience. Elena counts her breaths. 1. 2. 3. Her grandmother's voice echoes in her head, the way it always does when panic starts climbing up her spine. You survived worse than this, Nija. A stuck elevator is nothing. But her left arm throbs where the scar runs from wrist to elbow, the old injury awakening like it always does when she's stressed. She presses her sleeve down over it, a habit so ingrained she doesn't realize she's doing it anymore. Nathaniel finally speaks, his voice flat and clinical. Maintenance will have us moving in 5 minutes. Maybe less. Elena nods, though he's not looking at her to see it. She studies him from the corner of her eye. There's something almost inhuman about his stillness, the way he holds himself like he's afraid any unnecessary movement might reveal something he's spent years learning to hide. His face could belong to a statue, beautiful and completely empty of warmth. You're very calm for someone trapped in a metal box, Elena says, and immediately regrets it. This is not how you speak to the CEO whose company you're about to interview with. But the silence was crushing her, and words were the only weapon she had. Panic is inefficient. He doesn't look up from his phone. Elena feels something sharp move through her chest. Not anger exactly, but something close to it. So is being rude, but here we are. That gets his attention. His eyes lift from the screen, meeting hers for the first time. They're blue, the kind of blue that reminds her of winter mornings when the cold hasn't quite burned off yet. He looks at her like she's a problem that needs solving, a variable in an equation he hasn't figured out how to balance. The elevator shudders back to life. The lights return, too bright after the dimness. The doors slide open at the 62nd floor, and Elena steps out quickly, needing air, needing space, needing to not be in the presence of someone who seems to have surgically removed every human impulse from his body. She doesn't look back, but she can feel him watching her. The sensation follows her all the way down the corridor to the conference room where her interview is scheduled to begin in exactly 4 minutes. Inside, she sits in the waiting area, pressing her palms flat against her thighs to stop them from shaking. This job matters. Personal assistant to the CEO of Harrington Global Industries. The salary alone would mean she could finally have something that looks like security for the first time in her adult life. But the man in the elevator, now Nathaniel Harrington. Not William or Liam Brown, not the boy she once knew and her not Layla Jacobs she used to bear. Nathaniel Harrington, that's who she'd be working for. She touches her scar through the fabric of her blazer, and for just a second, something flickers at the edge of her memory. A boy's voice, desperate and young. A promise she can't quite remember making. Water closing over her head. Then the conference room doors open, and a woman in a soft beige suit gestures for her to enter. The room is all glass and steel, windows stretching from floor to ceiling with a view of the Manhattan skyline. 3 people sit at the far end of a table that could seat 20. Nathaniel Harrington is in the center, and he's looking at her with the same expression he wore in the elevator. Nothing. Complete absence of recognition or interest. Elena takes the seat across from them, sets her portfolio down with steady hands even though her pulse is hammering against her wrists. The woman to Nathaniel's right speaks first. Victoria Pierce, the nameplate reads. Chief Financial Officer. Ms. Rodriguez. You're our 18th candidate for this position. Mr. Harrington has very specific requirements. I read the job description, Elena says. Anticipate needs before they're expressed. Maintain absolute discretion. Available 18 hours a day. No personal calls during work hours. No questions about decisions already made. Victoria's eyebrow lifts slightly. You memorized it. I take preparation seriously. Nathaniel leans back in his chair, fingers steepled in front of him. When he speaks, his voice has the same flat quality it had in the elevator, but there's something underneath it now, a test being administered. Why apply for a position that's essentially high-level administrative work? Elena meets his eyes and doesn't look away. Because I'm tired of advising people who don't listen. I'd rather support someone who makes decisions that matter. Even if those decisions prioritize profit over people? Is that what you do? The room goes very quiet. The third person at the table, a middle-aged man whose nameplate reads Thomas Wright, head of operations, adjusts uncomfortably in his seat. Nathaniel's expression doesn't change, but something moves behind his eyes. A flicker of something that might be interest or might be irritation. I make decisions that keep this company profitable. Whether people benefit is incidental. Then why the charity division? Elena opens her portfolio, sliding a printed document across the table. Harrington Global donated $42 million to community development projects last year. That's not incidental. That's intentional. Victoria hides a smile behind her hand. Nathaniel picks up the document, scans it with those cold blue eyes, then sets it down with deliberate care. You've done your research. Like I said. I take preparation seriously. He asks her 15 more questions, each one designed to break her composure or catch her in a contradiction. She answers every single one, pushing back when his framing is unfair, acknowledging when she doesn't know something rather than trying to bluff her way through. By the time the interview ends, 45 minutes have passed, and Elena can feel exhaustion creeping into her shoulders. Nathaniel stands, and the meeting is clearly over. But as Elena gathers her portfolio, he doesn't look up. You start Monday. 7 a.m. Be on time. Or don't bother showing up at all. Elena freezes halfway out of her chair. I'm sorry, what? You heard me. He's already walking toward the door. Victoria will send the contract and non-disclosure agreements this afternoon. Read them carefully. Then he's gone, leaving Elena standing in the conference room with her heart doing something complicated in her chest. Relief. Terror. A strange sense of inevitability she can't explain. Victoria stands, extending her hand. Congratulations. And a word of advice? Don't take anything he says personally. Nathaniel doesn't do personal. Elena shakes her hand, manages a smile that probably doesn't reach her eyes. Noted. But as she rides the elevator back down to street level, the city spreading out below her in a chaos of movement and light, she can't shake the feeling that she knows him from somewhere. Not from TV, business articles, or Forbes profiles. From somewhere deeper, somewhere that lives in the part of her memory that still dreams about drowning. She steps out onto Madison Avenue, and the November wind cuts through her blazer like it's made of paper. People stream past on both sides, everyone moving with purpose, everyone certain of where they're going. Elena stands still in the middle of it all and touches her scar again, pressing down until she can feel her pulse beating underneath. Somewhere in the city above her, Nathaniel Harrington stands at his office window and watches the traffic below. His reflection in the glass shows nothing, reveals nothing. But in his right hand, hidden from view, he holds a small braided bracelet he keeps locked in his desk drawer. Faded blue and yellow threads, tied by hands that belong to a girl whose name he spent 15 years trying to forget. He doesn't know why he hired her. Can't explain the decision in any rational terms. But when she looked at him across that conference table with her chin up and her guard completely visible, something in his chest cracked just slightly. A hairline fracture in the armor he's spent decades perfecting. He drops the bracelet back in the drawer, locks it, and returns to the work that never ends. Monday morning arrives cold and unforgiving. Elena stands outside Harrington Global Industries at 6:45 a.m., coffee in one hand, her new security badge in the other. The building stretches up into the gray sky like a challenge. She rides the elevator to the 62nd floor, where the executive offices exist in a world of hushed voices and expensive art. Nathaniel's assistant workspace is a glass cube adjacent to his private office, visible from every angle. A fishbowl. A display case. Victoria appears at 7 exactly, carrying a tablet and wearing an expression that might be sympathy. He's already been here for 2 hours. Coffee, black, no sugar. He'll want the Tokyo acquisition files on his desk before his 8 o'clock call. And whatever you do, don't try to make conversation. He doesn't do small talk. Elena nods, setting her bag down at the pristine desk that's now apparently hers. Got it. Strong and silent type. More like glacial and silent type. Victoria pauses at the door. But you'll figure it out. Or you'll burn out in 3 weeks like the others. Either way, good luck. Nathaniel's office door is closed. Through the frosted glass, Elena can see his silhouette at the desk, completely motionless except for the movement of his hand across a keyboard. She prepares his coffee exactly as specified, retrieves the Tokyo files from the shared server, and approaches his door with the careful posture of someone entering a predator's territory. She knocks twice. No response. She knocks again, then pushes the door open. Nathaniel doesn't look up. His fingers move across the keyboard with mechanical precision, eyes locked on the screen like nothing else in the world exists. Elena crosses to his desk, sets the coffee precisely where previous cups have left a faint ring, then places the Tokyo files beside it. She waits. 5 seconds. 10. He keeps typing. Will there be anything else? She asks, keeping her voice neutral. Close the door on your way out. Elena leaves, pulling the door shut with more force than necessary. Through the glass wall of her fishbowl office, she watches him finally reach for the coffee, take one sip without looking at it, and return to his screen. No acknowledgement. No thank you. Nothing. The morning passes in a series of tasks delivered through terse emails. Reschedule the 2 o'clock. Cancel the 4:15. Get Steve Moore on the phone. Find last quarter's projections for the Boston property. Each request comes with no context, no explanation, just the assumption that she'll figure it out. By 11, Elena has fielded 6 calls from people who clearly expect her to fail, rearranged his calendar 3 times, and located documents that weren't where they were supposed to be. Her coffee has gone cold in its cup. She hasn't eaten breakfast. Nathaniel emerges from his office at 11:30, walking past her desk without a glance. Conference room B. 5 minutes. He's gone before she can respond. Elena grabs her tablet and follows, her heels clicking against marble floors. Conference room B turns out to be another glass box, this one with a view that makes her stomach drop. The city spreads out below like a map, buildings stacked against each other in impossible density, and somewhere down there, her grandmother is probably making lunch in the kitchen of their Brooklyn apartment, unaware that her granddaughter is currently 62 floors above the world. Nathaniel sits at the head of the table. 5 other people file in, all of them older than Elena, all of them wearing expressions that range from barely concealed hostility to complete indifference. She recognizes Thomas Wright from her interview. The others are strangers. This is Elena Rodriguez, Nathaniel says without preamble. She'll be handling my scheduling and communications going forward. Direct all requests through her. A woman with silver hair pulled back so tight it looks painful speaks first. What happened to Jennifer? Jennifer accepted a position elsewhere. Nathaniel opens a file on his tablet. Moving on. The Riverside Project. Where are we? The meeting becomes a blur of numbers and projections and plans that Elena tries following. She takes notes anyway, trying to map the constellation of relationships and tensions in the room. Thomas keeps glancing at Nathaniel like he's waiting for something to explode. The silver-haired woman, whose nameplate reads Margaret Sutton, Director of Acquisitions, challenges every single one of Nathaniel's statements with barely disguised contempt. The community board will never approve demolition, Margaret says, her voice sharp enough to cut. You're wasting time and money on a project that's dead in the water. The community board will approve it once we demonstrate the economic benefits. Nathaniel's tone doesn't change, doesn't rise, stays flat as glass. We're offering jobs, infrastructure improvements, increased property values for surrounding areas. You're offering displacement. You're tearing down a neighborhood that's been there for 70 years. I'm offering progress. Whether people choose to see it that way isn't my concern. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Margaret's jaw tightens, but she doesn't respond. Elena watches the exchange and feels something uncomfortable move through her chest. Her grandmother's neighborhood in Brooklyn has been fighting developers for 3 years. Buildings going up overnight, rent prices climbing so fast that people who've lived there for decades suddenly can't afford to stay. Progress, those developers call it. Erasure, her grandmother calls it. The meeting ends an hour later with nothing resolved and everyone looking slightly more hostile than when they arrived. Nathaniel stands, and the room empties quickly. Elena gathers her tablet, ready to follow, but his voice stops her at the door. What did you think? She turns. He's standing by the windows now, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city with that same expressionless mask he seems to wear like a second skin. About what? She asks carefully. The Riverside Project. You were taking notes. Elena hesitates. This feels like a test, and she has no idea what the right answer is. I think Margaret has a point. Displacing an entire community for luxury condos is going to create a lot of resistance. Resistance is factored into the timeline. That's not what I mean. I mean morally. Now he turns, and his eyes find hers with an intensity that makes her want to step back. Morality doesn't build empires, Ms. Rodriguez. Results do. And when the results hurt people? Then those people should have planned better. The words hit her like cold water. Elena feels anger rise in her throat, sharp and immediate, but she swallows it down. This is her first day. She needs this job. She can't afford to lose her temper with a man who clearly has no interest in hearing opposing viewpoints. But something in her face must show, because Nathaniel's expression changed slightly. Not softening exactly, but recalibrating. You disagree. It's not my place to disagree. I didn't ask about your place. I asked your opinion. Elena takes a breath. I think empires built on other people's pain don't last. Eventually, someone pushes back hard enough to knock them down. Silence stretches between them. Nathaniel watches her with those winter blue eyes, and for a second, she sees something flicker behind them. Not anger. Something else. Something that looks almost like recognition, though that doesn't make any sense. Then it's gone. Get back to work, Ms. Rodriguez. And order lunch for the 3 o'clock meeting. Nothing with garlic or onions. He walks past her, and she catches his scent. Expensive cologne and something underneath it, something clean and cold like snow. The rest of the day passes in a haze of emails and phone calls and tasks that arrive faster than she can complete them. By 6 o'clock, her eyes are burning from screen time, and her shoulders ache from tension. The office has mostly emptied out, but Nathaniel's light is still on, his silhouette visible through the frosted glass. Victoria appears at Elena's desk carrying her coat and bag. You're still here. So are you. I'm Salary. I'm always here. Victoria perches on the edge of the desk. But you should go home. He'll stay until midnight whether you're here or not. Elena saves the document she's working on. Does he ever leave? Sometimes. Mostly to go to his penthouse, which is 6 blocks away, or he'll work until 3 a.m. and then come back at 5. Victoria's voice carries something that might be sympathy or might just be exhaustion. Don't try to keep his hours. You'll burn out in a week. What happened to Jennifer? Elena asks. The last assistant? Victoria's expression closes down slightly. She lasted 2 months. That's actually pretty good. The one before her made it 3 weeks. Why do they leave? Why do you think? Victoria stands, adjusting her coat.
He's brilliant. He's impossibly demanding.
And he has the emotional range of a parking meter.
Most people can't handle it. After Victoria leaves, Elena sits in the quiet office and watches Nathaniel through the glass.
He hasn't moved in 20 minutes, just sits there staring at his screen like he's trying to solve an equation that has no solution.
She should leave.
Should go home to her grandmother's apartment where dinner will be waiting and the television will be playing too loud and everything will smell like the sandalwood candles her grandmother burns to keep the spirits happy. Instead, she stands, crosses to the small kitchen area, and makes a fresh pot of coffee. When it's done, she pours 2 cups, carries them back to his office, and knocks on the door.
No response. She opens it anyway.
Nathaniel looks up, and for a heartbeat, a flicker of something real tiredness, maybe even pain shows on his face. Then it vanishes, hidden so quickly she wonders if she imagined it.
"You're still here," he says. "So are you." Elena sets 1 cup on his desk. "You've been staring at that screen for 20 minutes without moving. That's not productive. That's just punishment."
He looks at the coffee, then at her.
"I didn't ask for this." "I know. That's why I brought it."
She takes a sip from her own cup, leaning against the doorframe.
"Can I ask you something?" "You're going to anyway. Why did you hire me? You clearly don't need someone who pushes back. So why?" Nathaniel is quiet for a long moment. His fingers drum once against the desk, a tiny break in his usual stillness. "Because everyone else who interviewed was terrified of me.
And I'm tired of being surrounded by people who won't tell me the truth."
"Even when the truth is that you're wrong?"
"Especially then." He picks up the coffee, takes a drink, and something in his shoulders releases slightly. Not much, but enough to notice. The Riverside Project.
Margaret was right. It's going to face more resistance than we projected. Elena feels surprise move through her. "Are you going to cancel it?" "No. I'm going to modify it. Mixed-use development instead of pure luxury.
Keep some of the existing structures.
Involve the community board in the planning process." He sets the cup down. "It'll be less profitable. But it'll actually get built. That's a good decision. It's a practical decision. Don't confuse the two."
But there's something in his voice now, the smallest hint of warmth, like sun on the other side of a glacier.
Elena finishes her coffee, sets the empty cup on the corner of his desk. "I'm going home." "You should too." "I will. Eventually."
She turns to leave, but his voice stops her.
"Ms. Rodriguez." "Yes?" "Thank you. For the coffee. It's such a small thing. 2 words of basic courtesy. But coming from him, it feels like something more.
Like a door opening just a crack, letting in the thinnest sliver of light.
Elena rides the elevator down 62 floors and steps out into the November evening.
The city has transformed in the hours she was inside, streetlights glowing gold against the gathering dark, people moving with the urgency of those trying to get somewhere warm. She pulls her coat tighter and starts walking toward the subway. Her phone buzzes.
Her grandmother. "Mija, you're coming home for dinner?" "On my way now, abuela." "How was the new job? This billionaire, he treats you well?"
Elena thinks about Nathaniel's expressionless face, his cold efficiency, the way he holds himself like he's afraid any softness might destroy him.
"He's complicated." "Complicated is just another word for damaged."
Her grandmother's voice carries the weight of someone who's seen enough life to recognize its patterns. Be careful with damaged men, Elena. They'll break your heart while trying to fix their own. Elena promises to be careful, ends the call, and descends into the subway station where the crowds press in from all sides. She finds a seat on the train, and as the car lurches into motion, she catches her reflection in the dark window. Her face looks tired.
Older than 29.
The scar on her arm throbs with phantom pain. She closes her eyes and sees water.
Always water.
A boy drowning, his hands reaching up through the dark. Her own voice screaming his name, but the name is lost now, buried under 15 years of trying not to remember. The train rattles through the tunnel, carrying her away from Manhattan's glass towers and back to Brooklyn's brick and brownstone reality. 3 weeks pass in a rhythm that starts to feel almost normal. Elena learns Nathaniel's patterns, the invisible rules that govern his days. He arrives at 5 a.m. every morning. Leaves sometime after midnight. Drinks his coffee black and his water with exactly 2 ice cubes. Takes calls while walking, never sitting. Reads documents with complete focus, never skimming. Responds to emails within 3 minutes or not at all. She also learns what he avoids. Small talk. Physical contact, even accidental brushes in the hallway. Questions about his personal life. Anything that might require emotional disclosure. But small things change. He starts acknowledging her presence with a nod when she brings his coffee. Occasionally asks her opinion on scheduling conflicts instead of just dictating solutions. Once, when she stayed late to finish a presentation, he ordered dinner for both of them without being asked. They don't talk about anything personal. They exist in a careful professional space that feels safe precisely because it has such clear boundaries. Then Sebastian Brown, his stepbrother, walks into the office on a Tuesday morning without an appointment, and everything feels off balance. Elena is at her desk when he arrives, carrying himself with the kind of easy confidence that comes from never being told no. He's handsome in a conventional way, all sharp suits and practiced smiles, and when he sees her, his eyes light up with interest that makes her skin crawl. "You must be the new assistant." Sebastian Brown. He extends his hand across her desk. Nathaniel's brother. Elena felt a strange feeling hearing the name Brown, but she shakes it briefly. Elena Rodriguez. And he's in a meeting. I'll wait. Sebastian settles into one of the chairs outside Nathaniel's office, crossing his legs like he owns the space. How long have you been working for my brother? 3 weeks. And you haven't quit yet? That's impressive. You must have the patience of a saint. There's something underneath his pleasant tone, something sharp and mean trying to dress itself up as humor. Elena has met men like this before. Men who think charm is a weapon and vulnerability is a target. Mr. Harrington is a demanding boss, she says carefully. But fair. Sebastian laughs. Fair. That's one word for it. Cold is another. Ruthless. Emotionally bankrupt. He leans forward slightly. Tell me, has he smiled even once since you started? Elena doesn't answer. Through the glass wall, she can see Nathaniel in the conference room, and even from here, she can tell the moment he notices Sebastian's presence. His entire body goes rigid, and his expression, already cold, turns to ice. The meeting ends abruptly. Nathaniel emerges from the conference room, and the temperature in the office drops so fast Elena half expects to see her breath fog the air. Sebastian. What do you want? Is that any way to greet your brother? Sebastian stands, and the two of them face each other like opposing armies. They're similar in height, similar in build, but everything else is different. Sebastian is all performance. Nathaniel is all control. I don't have time for whatever game you're playing. No game. Just checking in. Dad's been trying to reach you. I'm aware. You could call him back. I could. I won't. Nathaniel moves past him toward his office. If that's all. But Sebastian doesn't leave. He glances at Elena, then back at Nathaniel, and something calculating moves across his face. Actually, I wanted to talk about the Riverside project. Heard you're modifying the plans. Going soft on the community demands. Nathaniel stops. Turns. My business decisions are none of your concern. They are when they affect the family reputation. Dad built this company on strength, not sentiment. Dad built this company on my mother's money and her name. Don't rewrite history. The words come out flat, matter of fact, but Elena hears the blade underneath them.
Sebastian's smile falters for just a second before reconstructing itself. Still bitter about ancient history. Some things never change. He adjusts his cufflinks. How is the therapy going, by the way? Still talking about your feelings to strangers? Nathaniel's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. Get out of my office. I'm just concerned.
You're making decisions that don't make business sense.
Hiring assistants with no executive experience. Another glance at Elena. Modifying projects to appease people who don't matter. It's concerning. Last chance, Sebastian. Leave now or I call security. Sebastian raises his hands in mock surrender. Fine. I'm going. But you should think about what you're doing, Nate.
Think about whether you're running a company or running a therapy session.
He heads toward the elevator, pausing at Elena's desk one more time. Nice meeting you, Elena. Good luck lasting longer than the others.
Then he's gone, and the office feels like the aftermath of a storm. Nathaniel stands perfectly still in the middle of the space, and Elena can see the effort it takes for him to maintain that control. His hands are clenched at his sides.
A muscle jumps in his jaw.
Mr. Harrington, she starts, but he cuts her off.
Cancel my afternoon appointments. I'll be working from home.
He walks into his office, grabs his coat and briefcase, and leaves without another word. Elena watches him go, and something in her chest aches in a way she doesn't understand.
She calls Victoria. Did you know Sebastian was coming by? Sebastian showed up? Damn. Victoria sounds genuinely worried. What happened? They fought. Sort of. Nathaniel left. How bad? Bad enough that I've never seen him lose composure before, and just now he looked like he was about to break something. Victoria is quiet for a moment. Listen, whatever you saw, whatever you heard, forget it. That family dynamic is toxic.
Has been for 30 years. And Sebastian knows exactly which buttons to push to destroy Nathaniel's control.
Why does he hate him so much? That's not my story to tell. But Elena? Be careful. Sebastian is going to use you to get at Nathaniel. He always finds the weak point and exploits it.
After the call ends, Elena sits in the too quiet office and thinks about the way Nathaniel's expression cracked when Sebastian mentioned therapy. About the barely contained rage that suggested years of damage compressed into a space too small to hold it.
Her grandmother's warning echoes in her head. Be careful with damaged men. But it's too late to be careful. She's already involved. That evening, Elena stands outside the Whitmore Club, adjusting the sleek dress she's wearing perfectly chic. She didn't plan for a last-minute charity gala. Nathaniel sent the invitation through email at 4 p.m. with no explanation, just the address and a time. Be there at 7. She almost didn't come. Almost texted back some polite excuse about prior commitments or sudden illness. But something about the terse message felt less like a command and more like a request he didn't know how to make properly. So she's here, climbing marble steps toward doors held open by men in white gloves. Inside, the club is all old money and older architecture, crystal chandeliers throwing fractured light across walls lined with portraits of men who've been dead for a century. The main ballroom opens onto an indoor pool complex that looks like something from a dream, water reflecting the lights in patterns that move like living things. Elena accepts a champagne flute from a passing waiter and immediately feels out of place. Everyone here moves with the casual confidence of people who've never worried about rent or medical bills or whether their subway card has enough money for the ride home. She recognizes faces from business magazines, from news broadcasts, from the background of her daily life transformed into foreground reality. Then she sees him. Nathaniel stands near the far windows, surrounded by a small group of people who are clearly trying to engage him in conversation. He's wearing a tuxedo that probably costs more than her monthly salary, and he looks exactly as uncomfortable as she feels, which is somehow comforting. Their eyes meet across the room, and something passes between them. Not quite recognition, but something close to it. A shared understanding of not belonging even when you're supposed to.
He excuses himself from the group and crosses to where she stands, and up close, she can see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his mouth that suggests he'd rather be anywhere else.
You came, he says. You invited me. Sort of. If that cryptic email counts as an invitation.
He glances at the passing tray, picks up a glass of champagne, but doesn't drink. I'm terrible at these things, he admits.
Social events. Talking to people who don't matter. Pretending to care. Elena quirks an eyebrow. You're admitting that now?
He shrugs, almost embarrassed.
Company's sponsoring it. I have to be here. And having someone around who isn't angling for a favor makes it bearable.
Something tugs at Elena's chest.
That's actually kind of honest.
Don't let it go to your head, he mutters, though the corner of his mouth twitches like a half-smile. But there's something different in his voice now, something softer than the usual flatness. They stand side by side, watching the crowd move and mingle, and for a while, neither of them speaks.
It's comfortable, this silence. It doesn't demand anything.
Your brother is here, Elena says eventually, nodding toward the entrance where Sebastian has just arrived with a woman who looks like she stepped out of a fashion magazine.
Nathaniel's expression closes down immediately. Of course he is. He never misses an opportunity to network.
Sebastian spots them almost instantly, and his face lights up with something that might look like pleasure to anyone who doesn't know better. He weaves through the crowd, bringing his date with him, and Elena braces herself for whatever performance is about to unfold.
Nathaniel. Elena. Sebastian's smile is all teeth. Didn't expect to see you both here. Together.
Ms. Rodriguez is representing Harrington Global in a professional capacity, Nathaniel says, his voice returning to that flat, emotionless tone.
Of course. Professional. Sebastian's eyes move between them, calculating something. You know, it's funny.
I was just telling Amanda here about our childhood.
Do you remember those days, Nate? Before you became so successful? When you were just a scared little kid who couldn't stand up for himself? Do you remember the little Lee? Yeah, Nate, he didn't finish pronouncing Liam?
The words land like physical blows. Elena sees Nathaniel's hand tighten around his champagne glass, the only visible sign that Sebastian has drawn blood. That was a long time ago, Nathaniel says.
Not that long. Some things don't change. You were weak then, hiding behind other people.
And you're weak now, just better at disguising it.
Sebastian leans closer, voice dropping. How's the insomnia? Still having nightmares about drowning? Elena's breath catches. Drowning.
The word echoes in her head, triggering something, a flash of memory she can't quite grasp.
Nathaniel sets his glass down on a nearby table with deliberate care. Excuse us.
He walks away, and Elena follows without thinking, leaving Sebastian behind with his practiced smile and his cruelty disguised as concern. They end up in a side hallway, away from the crowd and the noise. Nathaniel leans against the wall, and for the first time since she's known him, he looks genuinely shaken. His breathing is too fast. His hands won't stay still. I shouldn't have brought you here, he says.
This was a mistake. What did he mean about drowning? Nothing. Sebastian likes to invent stories that make him look better and me look worse. It's his specialty. But Elena is remembering things now. Fragments. A boy's voice calling for help. Water closing over someone's head.
Her own terror as she fought against the current, as something sharp tore through her arm, as blood turned the water dark. She touches her scar through the fabric of her dress, and Nathaniel's eyes follow the movement. He stares at her arm like he's seeing something impossible. Where did you get that scar? His voice has changed completely, no longer flat but raw, almost desperate.
I don't really remember. I was a kid. Some kind of accident. In water? Elena's heart starts to beat faster. How did you know that?
Nathaniel pushes off the wall, and he's looking at her now with an intensity that makes her want to step back.
What's your birth name? Forget I asked.
Pretend this never happened. His voice is raw, trembling.
They return to the ballroom, and Elena watches Nathaniel slide back into his role with practiced ease. The mask goes back on. The cold returns.
But now she can see the effort it takes, and can see the tiny cracks he's trying to hold together. The evening passes in a blur of forced conversation and painful small talk.
Sebastian watches them from across the room with an expression Elena can't quite read.
Victory, maybe, or satisfaction. He knows something has changed, even if he doesn't know what. Around 9, the crowd begins moving toward the pool area for what the program calls an aquatic demonstration.
Elena follows reluctantly, her heels clicking against tile as she moves.
The pool is spectacular up close, lit from below so the water glows blue-green like something from another world. Floating platforms create paths across the surface, and performers in elaborate costumes prepare for some kind of synchronized swimming display.
Elena stands at the edge, watching reflections ripple and break.
Nathaniel is somewhere behind her, talking to a board member about quarterly projections, and she's grateful for the moment alone to try to process everything that's happened in the last hour. Then someone bumps into her from behind. Hard. She stumbles forward, her heel catches on the edge of the tile, and suddenly she's falling. Time slows down in that horrible way it does when you know you're about to get hurt and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Her left arm hits the pool's edge first.
The exact same spot where the scar is.
Pain explodes up her arm, white-hot and familiar, and for a second, she's 12 years old again, underwater, metal tearing through skin, blood clouding everything.
She screams without meaning to.
Then hands are on her, pulling her back from the edge, and Nathaniel is there, his face completely drained of color. His fingers close around her arm, right over the scar, and the moment he touches it, something breaks in both of them.
The memories come flooding back. Not fragments anymore, but the whole story, vivid and complete. Summer day.
Swimming hole near their neighborhood.
Somebody pushing young Liam into deep water, laughing. Liam can't swim, is drowning, panicking.
Layla doesn't hesitate, jumps in fully clothed. She's not a strong swimmer either, but she fights her way to him, grabs his shirt, drags him toward the shallow end. But there's debris in the water, rusted metal from old construction, and as she pulls him to safety, it catches her arm, tears through flesh and muscle. Blood everywhere. Liam on the shore, screaming her name, hysterical. Her grandmother arriving, wrapping the wound, rushing her away.
Him visiting her in the hospital. Making the bracelet. Promising they'd always be friends. 2 days later, his father announcing they're moving immediately. No time for goodbyes. Liam searching everywhere for her house, but couldn't see her. Both of them alone.
Both of them certain they'd been abandoned. Nathaniel's hands are shaking against her arm.
Layla. Liam.
His composure shatters completely. 15 years of carefully constructed walls collapse in a single moment, and he pulls her against his chest, and she can feel his heart hammering so hard it's like he's the one who's drowning.
People are staring now.
The entire gala has turned to watch this display of emotion from a man famous for having none. Sebastian is pushing through the crowd, his expression changing from confusion to understanding to something that looks like rage.
But Nathaniel doesn't seem to notice or care.
He just holds her like she's the only solid thing in a world that suddenly appeared. "I looked for you," he says against her hair, his voice breaking.
"I looked for so long." "I know."
"Me too." They stand there at the edge of the pool, surrounded by Manhattan's elite in their expensive clothes and their expensive judgment, and for the first time since Elena walked into Harrington Global, Nathaniel Harrington looks human. Sebastian reaches them, his face a carefully constructed mask of concern that doesn't reach his eyes.
"Nate, what's going on? Is she hurt?"
Nathaniel pulls back slightly, just enough to look at Sebastian, and his expression has transformed into something Elena has never seen before. Not cold. Not controlled. Just absolutely done. "You pushed her," Nathaniel says, his voice quiet and deadly. "I saw you. You deliberately pushed her toward the pool." "That's absurd. It was crowded. Someone bumped into me, and I lost my balance. It was an accident."
Nothing you do is an accident. Nathaniel's hand is still on Elena's arm, protective and possessive.
You spent our entire childhood trying to destroy me. And now you're going after the one person who ever gave a damn whether I lived or died.
The crowd has gone completely silent. This is better than any performance they could have paid for. A family drama unfolding in real time. Sebastian's mask slips for just a second, showing the ugly truth underneath. She's just an assistant, Nate. A secretary. You're acting like she's something that matters. She saved my life.
15 years ago, when you pushed me into water you knew I couldn't survive, she jumped in and pulled me out. And she's been paying for it ever since.
Nathaniel's voice rises slightly, emotion bleeding through. Sebastian's face flushes red. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know you've spent 30 years trying to be me and failing. I know you're currently planning a hostile takeover of my company because you can't stand that I built something with our mother's name on it instead of Dad's. I know you're miserable and small and so desperate for validation that you'll destroy anything good just to feel powerful for 5 minutes. The words land like bombs.
Sebastian's carefully constructed charm evaporates completely, leaving only rage.
You self-righteous bastard. You walk around acting like you're better than everyone, but you're just a scared little boy pretending to be a man. And when this, he gestures at Elena, falls apart, you'll be alone again.
Just like you deserve. Nathaniel steps forward, and for a second, Elena thinks he might actually hit his brother.
But instead, he just looks at him with something that might be pity.
I'd rather be alone than be you.
He lifts her without a word and carries her through the crowd.
People move aside instinctively.
Elena catches the low murmur behind them, curious voices already forming tomorrow's story.
He doesn't stop until they're outside. The car is waiting. Brooklyn, Nathaniel says. Ms. Rodriguez's address.
Inside the car, the city slides past in streaks of light.
Elena's arm still aches. Nathaniel stares straight ahead, jaw tight, shoulders locked.
I'm sorry, he says quietly.
For not knowing it was you. For tonight.
For bringing you back into all of this.
You were 12, she says. You were being bullied. None of that was your fault.
He shakes his head.
I remember the hospital. The bracelet.
His voice dips.
Blue and yellow threads.
You tied it around my wrist and told me I was worth saving.
Liam likes Layla.
Her throat tightens.
We looked for you. After you moved. My grandmother tried to find your family. You were just gone. My father moved us to Boston, he says. Changed everything.
I changed my name.
Fixed my eyes. I wanted to erase that boy. The one who got hurt. The one who got you hurt. I chose to save you, she says. He exhales shakily. I buried all of it. My mother. Sebastian. Everything.
I told myself it wasn't real. Elena reaches for him, her hand closing around his wrist. His pulse is racing.
I'm real, she says. And so is what happened. But we're not those kids anymore. He finally looks at her, eyes raw. I don't know how to let people in. You survived, she says firmly. That's not weakness. That's strength.
The car slows, pulling up in front of her grandmother's building.
Elena looks at him.
Come inside, she says.
Meet my grandmother.
He hesitates, and she can see the war happening behind his eyes. The part of him that wants to retreat, to rebuild his walls, to go back to being untouchable. And the part that's so tired of being alone he can barely stand it.
Please, Elena says. You don't have to be Nathaniel Harrington, CEO, right now. You can just be Liam. The boy who liked origami and terrible jokes and didn't know how to swim. Something breaks in his expression.
He nods, and they get out of the car together.
Elena's grandmother is still awake when they arrive,
sitting in her favorite chair with a blanket over her lap and a telenovela playing on the television. She looks up when they enter, and her eyes go wide at the sight of Nathaniel in his tuxedo, so obviously out of place in this tiny apartment with its worn furniture and family photos covering every surface.
Abuela, this is Nathaniel. My boss. And also, someone I knew a long time ago.
Her grandmother stands, studying Nathaniel with the kind of attention that sees through everything.
You're the boy, she says in Spanish. The one from the swimming hole.
The one who broke her heart when you disappeared.
Nathaniel looks at Elena. What did she say? She remembers you. Elena's throat is tight.
She remembers how I cried for weeks after you left. How I used to check the mail every day hoping for a letter that never came.
Nathaniel's eyes close. I wrote you letters. Dozens of them. But I didn't have your address, didn't know where you'd gone.
I kept them all in a box under my bed until I left for college. Then I burned them because keeping them hurt too much.
Elena's grandmother moves closer, reaching up to cup Nathaniel's face in her weathered hands.
She studies him for a long moment, then nods as if confirming something she suspected. Sit, she says in heavily accented English.
I make coffee. We talk.
They sit at the small kitchen table while her grandmother moves around the familiar space, preparing coffee the way she's done for 50 years. Nathaniel looks completely out of place and somehow exactly where he needs to be, his tuxedo jacket draped over the back of a chair that probably came from a thrift store 20 years ago. Tell me, her grandmother says, setting coffee cups in front of them.
Why you come back now? After so long?
Nathaniel wraps his hands around the cup like he needs its warmth.
I didn't know it was her.
She's using different names now.
Elena instead of Layla.
Rodriguez instead of Jacobs.
And I'm different too. Different name, different everything.
We didn't recognize each other.
But you do now.
Yes.
And now what? You break her heart again? The directness of the question makes Elena wince, but Nathaniel doesn't flinch. I don't want to.
But I don't know how to be what she needs. I don't know how to be what anyone needs.
I'm good at business. At making money. At being alone.
That's all I've done for 15 years. Elena's grandmother studies Nathaniel over the rim of her coffee cup, quiet but intent.
My Elena saved you once, she says finally. Maybe now it's your turn. Nathaniel doesn't answer.
Not from danger, her grandmother continues. From a careful life. A life where she never asks for what she wants because she's afraid to lose it. Her gaze sharpens. You both do this. Build walls. Call it safety. But safe is not the same as happy. The words settle into the small kitchen and stay there.
Elena feels them land, heavy and true.
She has played it safe for years. Safe jobs. Safe choices. Safe distance. Wanting less because wanting more felt risky. And Nathaniel, she realizes, has done the same. Just dressed it better. Her grandmother softens. You're already starting, she says, almost kindly. You're here. In my small space. Drinking coffee. The man on television wouldn't do this. He would run. You stayed. They finish their coffee and when it's time to leave, Elena walks Nathaniel out to where his car waits at the curb.
Thank you, he says. For tonight. For letting me in.
She nods, arms folded against the cold.
I'm not walking away. But I'm not pretending this is simple either. He listens. You're still my boss.
And we both have a lot to untangle.
Who we were. Who we are now. I know. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out his phone.
Tomorrow, I'm calling an emergency board meeting. I'm going to announce changes to how we handle community development.
Real changes, not just modifications. And I'm going to recommend you for a new position. Community liaison. More salary, but you won't report to me directly anymore. You'll work with Victoria. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Because your grandmother is right. I've been running for 15 years. And I'm tired of running. He looks at her, his expression is completely open. I don't know what this is. What we are. But I know I want to find out. And I can't do that if you're my employee and every interaction is shadowed by professional boundaries. Elena's heart is doing something complicated in her chest. Hope mixed with fear mixed with something that feels dangerously like the beginning of love. What if it doesn't work? What if we're too different now? What if the people we were as kids don't match who we are as adults? Then we'll find out together. And at least we'll know. He reaches out, his fingers brushing her scarred arm through her coat sleeve. I've spent 15 years not knowing. Not knowing if you blamed me. Not knowing if you remembered me.
Not knowing if I destroyed the one good thing in my childhood. I don't want to spend the rest of my life not knowing what could happen if I'm brave enough to try. Elena looks up at him, this man who was once a scared boy with glasses, who transformed himself into something untouchable and is now trying to remember how to be human. She thinks about her grandmother's words. Safe is not same as happy. Okay, she says. We'll try. But slowly. And carefully. And if either of us starts to drown, the other one pulls them out. Deal? Deal. He gets into his car, and she watches it pull away into the New York night, taillights disappearing into the flow of traffic. Above her, her grandmother's window glows warm against the dark, and Elena climbs the stairs back to the apartment where she's lived for 29 years, to the life she's built from safety and careful choices. But something has changed. Some door has opened that she can't close again, and she's not sure she wants to. The next morning, Elena arrives at Harrington Global to find the office in controlled chaos. Victoria intercepts her at the elevator with a coffee and an expression that might be approval or might be concern. He's been here since 4 a.m. Called an emergency board meeting for 9. And he's asked to see you in his office before it starts. Elena takes the coffee, grateful for something to do with her hands. Did he tell you what happened last night? No. But it's already all over the business news. Nathaniel Harrington has a mystery woman. Nathaniel Harrington had a public confrontation with his brother. Nathaniel Harrington showed actual human emotion at a charity gala. The speculation is running wild. Great. Hey. Victoria touches Elena's arm. Whatever happened, whatever is happening, I'm glad. He's been a ghost for as long as I've known him. If you're the reason he's finally coming back to life, then thank you. Nathaniel's office door is open when Elena reaches it. He's standing at the windows, looking out at the city the way he always does, but something about his posture is different. Less rigid. More present. Close the door, he says without turning around. She does, then stands in the center of the room, waiting. I'm moving forward with what I said last night. New position for you. No direct reporting to me. Victoria will handle your evaluations and oversight. He finally turns, and his eyes find hers. And I'm restructuring the company. Moving away from pure profit-driven development toward community-integrated projects. It's going to cost money. The board is going to fight me. Some investors will leave. But I don't care anymore. Nathaniel. I've spent 15 years building an empire that means nothing. Buildings full of people I don't know living lives I don't care about. And last night, sitting in your grandmother's kitchen drinking terrible coffee, I felt more human than I have in years. His voice is steady, determined. I want to build things that matter. Even if it means building smaller. Even if it means making less money. Even if it means risking everything I've spent my adult life creating. Elena feels something fierce and proud move through her chest. The board is going to think you've lost your mind. Let them. He crosses to his desk, pulls open the locked drawer, and removes something small. The bracelet. Faded blue and yellow threads, barely holding together after 15 years.
I've been carrying this around like a talisman.
A reminder of the last time someone believed I was worth saving.
But I don't need to carry it anymore. Because you're here.
And I'm going to spend however long it takes proving that 12-year-old you was right.
The board meeting is exactly as contentious as Elena predicted.
She watches through the glass walls as Nathaniel presents his restructuring plan, as faces around the table move from skeptical to hostile.
Margaret Sutton looks like she's considering physical violence. Thomas Wright is shaking his head.
Even Victoria looks concerned about the financial projections.
But Nathaniel doesn't waver.
He presents his case with the same cold precision he uses for everything else, except now there's something underneath it.
Conviction. Purpose.
The sense that he's fighting for something he actually believes in rather than just fighting to win. The meeting ends with no clear resolution. The board demands time to review the proposals.
Several investors threaten to pull out.
Sebastian, who showed up uninvited, makes a speech about fiduciary responsibility and emotional decision-making that's clearly aimed at destroying Nathaniel's credibility. When it's over, Nathaniel walks out of the conference room looking exhausted but not defeated. He catches Elena's eye across the office space, and something passes between them.
We're in this together now. No turning back.
The next weeks unfold in a pattern of controlled chaos. The business press runs constant speculation about Nathaniel's mental state, his relationship with his mysterious assistant, his radical restructuring plans.
Some articles are sympathetic. Most are not.
Sebastian launches a formal challenge to Nathaniel's leadership, citing breach of fiduciary duty.
Investors split into factions. The company's stock price becomes volatile. But through it all, Nathaniel holds steady.
He meets with community boards, listens to neighborhood concerns, modifies development plans to preserve historic buildings and local businesses.
He implements new hiring practices that prioritize community employment.
He establishes a fund for displaced residents. And slowly, grudgingly, people start to notice.
The press changes its tone.
Instead of another heartless developer, Nathaniel becomes the CEO who chose principle over profit. Investors who initially fled start trickling back, intrigued by the sustainable model. Community groups that usually protest developments start partnering with Harrington Global instead.
Elena watches it all from her new position, working with neighborhoods to integrate their needs into development plans. She discovers she's good at this, at translating between the language of profit and the language of people.
At finding solutions that serve both. And in the spaces between work, she and Nathaniel figure out what they are to each other. They move slowly, carefully, learning each other as adults while trying to integrate who they were as children. They have dinner at her grandmother's apartment once a week.
They go out more.
They talk about everything, his therapy sessions where he's finally processing his childhood trauma, her fear of abandonment that makes commitment terrifying, the ways they've both built lives around avoiding pain.
It's not easy.
There are nights when Nathaniel retreats into his old coldness, when the vulnerability becomes too much and he has to rebuild his walls just to breathe. There are days when Elena pulls away, convinced that this is temporary, that he'll leave again, that safety is better than risk.
But they keep showing up. Keep choosing each other. Keep learning that love isn't about being perfect, it's about being present.
6 months after the gala, they stand together at the opening ceremony for the Riverside Community Commons, the development that started this whole transformation. It's not the luxury high-rise originally planned. Instead, it's mixed-use space with affordable housing, community centers, preserved historic buildings, and parks designed with neighborhood input.
The profit margins are lower. But the community is thriving. Sebastian didn't come to the ceremony.
He's busy fighting his own battles, his attempted hostile takeover having failed when Nathaniel converted the company to a hybrid ownership model that made a pure profit-driven acquisition impossible.
Their father didn't come either. Some relationships are too broken to fix.
But Elena's grandmother is there, Victoria is there, looking proud. The community board members who fought so hard to preserve their neighborhood are there, celebrating a victory they never expected.
Nathaniel stands at the podium, but the man speaking isn't the one the headlines built. He doesn't talk in numbers or projections. He talks about limits. About consequences. About what it means to build something that people can actually live with. There's a pause when he finishes. Not applause right away. Just silence. The kind that means people are thinking. He steps down and looks for her. Elena is there, and when his hand finds hers, it feels deliberate. A choice. They stand together, watching the project behind them. The risk. And commitment. And a future that hasn't been rehearsed. I'm glad, he says quietly, being honest. Elena thinks of dark water and scraped skin. Of a bracelet kept long after it should have been forgotten. Of two people who destiny didn't only bring together, but also through showing up when it mattered, again and again. But here, in this narrow moment they've claimed for themselves, something loosens. Nathaniel has chosen differently. At least this time. But choices don't stay made forever. As the sun slips behind and the noise rises again, Elena wonders the thing no one says out loud. Is healing something you arrive at? Or something you have to keep choosing, even when it hurts, even when it costs you everything you built to feel safe? And beside her, Nathaniel wonders too.